She was 4 times the First Lady of the land and was oft proclaimed First Lady of the world. Her interest in people of all kinds led her to shatter the stereotyped conceptions of the role of a president's wife.
Anna Eleanor Roosevelt was born on October 11, 1884 in New York City. She was born into an upper-class family and she was a shy child. Her mother was a socialite who was embarrassed by Eleanor's ugliness. Eleanor's father, Elliot Roosevelt, was an alcoholic who was depressed. Eleanor Roosevelt was 8 years old when her mother died, and her father died 2 years later. While in New York, Eleanor and her siblings lived with her grandma. She went to prep school in England, and she was reserved until she was mentored by her headmistress, who taught her how to be independent. Eleanor married her distant cousin, Franklin Delano Roosevelt. They had 6 children: Anna Eleanor, James, Franklin, Elliot, Franklin Delano, and John Aspinwall. Eleanor worked for the Red Cross during World War I. Franklin Delano Roosevelt suffered a polio attack in 1921, so Eleanor was able to help with his political career when he became president in 1933. He called her his eyes and ears. Eleanor Roosevelt dramatically changed the role of the First Lady, and she was an important part of American politics. She spoke out during press conferences and she advocated for human rights, children's causes, and women's issues. She worked on behalf of the League of Women Voters, and she had a newspaper column called My Day, where she famously wrote, "The separation of church and state is extremely important to any of us who hold the original traditions of our nation. To change these traditions by changing our traditional attitude toward public education would be harmful, I think, to our whole attitude of tolerance in the religious area." She helped the country's poor, and she stood against racial discrimination. During World War II, she traveled abroad to visit U.S. troops. Eleanor Roosevelt is regarded as a leader, and she led the way for women's rights and civil rights. She was one of the first officials to publicize important issues through mass media. Eleanor was a delegate to the United Nations General Assembly, and she was on the chair of the United Nations Human Rights Commission. She helped write the Universal Declaration of Human Rights, which she considers to be her greatest achievement.
And which will give them a sense that they are human beings that can walk the earth with their heads high and look all men in the face. If we observe these rights for ourselves and for others, I think we will find that it is easier in the world to build peace, because war destroys all human rights and freedoms. So in fighting for those, we fight for peace.
President John F. Kennedy made Eleanor a delegate to the United Nations, and he appointed her chair of the Commission on the Status of Women. Eleanor is one of the most outspoken women who has ever been in the White House, despite her many critics. Most agree that she is a great humanitarian, and she dedicated much of her life to fighting for political and social change. On November 7, 1962, Eleanor Roosevelt died of tuberculosis.
Surely no one in our times lived life more fully and more for others than did Eleanor Roosevelt.